What's going on, fight fans? For MMA Sucker, my name's Nate Freeman. I'm joined today by someone who will be making their professional MMA debut at Valley Fight Series 15 in Fresno, California. She may look familiar to you. This is my first time interviewing somebody for the second time on this channel. Please welcome Ashley Thiner. Ashley, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic, man. Sun's out. I'm in sunny San Diego, so I decided to come outside for this interview, but I am loving life and so excited for this fight. I only got 1.5 weeks, what is it, 9 days, something like that. I can't freaking wait. I'm so stoked.
Yeah, we're super excited to watch you compete on June 8th against a fighter who holds a little bit of name recognition in the fact that her last fight was against current LFA interim strawweight champion Natasha Kutsiatina. Tell me a little bit about her as an opponent, and I guess first, how let's take a few steps back, because the last time we spoke on this channel, you were getting ready to compete in the World Games.
Right.
And I know I've spoke with you since then on USA Muay Thai's YouTube channel. So if you watch that video, some of this may be backtracking, and I'll link the video, link the interview to this video up in the top right corner. But just as a quick recap,
Sure.
you headed into, and feel free to interrupt.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. So I went to World Games, right? And at World Games, I took silver in a very close split decision gold medal match, right? I fought 3 times. I won my first 2. Last one I lost split decision. And then a couple months later, I get a call saying that she tested positive for diuretics, which is completely illegal. So she got stripped of her gold medal. And I am now the gold medalist for the World Games, which they only do every 4 years. So I still retain that title. The next one's next year. I'm not going to be competing for that because I am making the switch to MMA. After the World Games, I went and competed twice in amateur MMA. And both times were for title belts. And the first one was an opponent that was like a pancration world champion, and that was the first 30-24 I've ever gotten in my life. Kind of mad I didn't finish it because I had a couple opportunities and little tweaks. And then the second one was against somebody who had 4 or 5. She was 5-0, and she had 4 or 5 first round submissions, right? And going into that one, of course, it's let's strike. And so I got out of the first round, which was more than anybody else had done. And then second round, I ended up finishing her via ground and pound. So that was a very awesome performance. That was last March. So that was over a year ago. This is the longest hiatus I've had for, I want to say 6 or 7 years. I've always fought multiple times in a year, at least once, if not, the most I've ever fought was 13 times in 1 year because of tournaments. You go do a bunch of tournaments and you fight 3 times in a weekend. So I have a lot of experience with that. And I am just over the moon excited that they found me a willing opponent, because one of the problems is with having the striking record that I do have a pedigree. So going into this, trying to find willing opponents that are going to be able to match me to some extent is very difficult. And Bailey from Valley Fight Series has actually been trying to find me a fight since I was an amateur, because she had an amateur promotion that is now Pro-Am. And so I want to say that she's been trying to find me a fight for 6 or 7 years. And finally, now that I've gone pro, she worked on it. She tried to get me on the other card that she had, no luck. But this one, she got somebody to say yes. And that is huge, because now I get to finally start. And it's been over a year. I've been waiting to start my ascent into pro MMA. So I'm just super grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for my opponent, CaySea McBride, for getting in there. The cool thing about us is we're both strikers predominantly. So I think it's going to be a great matchup. We're going to have an exciting fight because it's striking. And I mean, I'm partial to striking, if people didn't know. Definitely a banger. We're both going to be throwing bombs and trying to knock each other out, and that's my favorite type of fight. So I'm excited for the stylistic matchup because I think it's going to showcase my skills really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that part of the reason for the layoff was you had like a shoulder injury or something as well, correct? A
Yeah,
hand.
my
Yeah,
hand.
yeah.
So in that fight, the last fight I had in March, my knuckle actually. I forget the name of it, but the tendon that covers the knuckle, the very top, it wouldn't stay in place.
Oh my goodness.
So it would like move on my knuckle every time I like tried to flex my hand. The tendon that sits there that keeps your finger in place, it would move. So it took a few months for that to heal up before I could start actually looking for another fight. But it healed up perfectly. I have no problems with it now. It was just a little thing. We didn't have to do surgery. That was nice. I just had like a brace, like a hand brace that I had to wear. Apparently, I'm punching a little too hard. Getting used to the small gloves is another thing. The little gloves compared to 10-ounce boxing gloves is definitely a switch. And then strengthening your hands. So I have like putty and rice where you like work your hands out now to try and get all that tendon strength so that you can, continue to fight directly after your fights instead of taking a bunch of time off.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure one of the questions that you've gotten plenty of times that you answered in your last fight, I'm sure, was your abilities on the ground, given your striking background.
Right.
But I feel like you answered those questions in a pretty definitive way.
Yeah.
Plus, you train with a lot of excellent grapplers.
They're very good grapplers. Yeah, that's the whole reason I moved down to San Diego, was to get a variety of training partners that I knew would fill that hole that I was missing. I have Nick Piedmont is Phil Davis's coach. You know Phil Davis from Bellator?
Oh, yeah.
So Nick Piedmont is my wrestling coach. And then obviously I train at Alliance with Angela Hill and Jenna Bishop. And Jenna's fighting for PFL like the week after me, the tournament, the PFL tournament, the $1 million 125er tournament. And she's already one of the best grapplers in the world. So going against her on a consistent basis, live rolls with her is definitely beneficial for me. And then Angela just got her first sub via guillotine in her last fight. So that's super exciting too. It means that I'm in the right place. And I do believe that my grappling is getting there. I think it's getting to the upper levels of, yeah. And I'm excited. I could have that one fight that I got a 30-24 that I was talking about. I had her in 3 different submissions that if I would have like actually cranked them or pushed my hips in, little micro adjustments, but I was just a little ADD with the subs, and I just kept switching like positions into dominant positions instead of subbing. Then I would have had an armbar definitely. I had the opportunity for a Kimura, an armbar, and then another armbar. So I could totally come out of any fight with a sub, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, for sure. And then I know that in our last interview, once again, we sort of spoke about the differences of making the switch from Muay Thai to MMA, but
right.
Even now making the switch from amateur Muay Thai to professional MMA, talk to me about some of those differences in your training, because I'm assuming that you are going up to five minutes round. Yeah. And doing the smaller gloves. And I don't know, some promotions have headgear, some don't.
For pro, we're no headgear. You can do knees. My favorite is that I'm going to be able to do knees to the head. I'm so excited because if you remember in IFMA for nationals, right, the qualifier, the first year they had it when we qualified to go to the World Games, my first fight, I actually got a TKO on a professional Muay Thai fighter because of my knees to the head, right? Because I like to jump and shoot that knee. And she was significantly shorter than me. So it worked out that my hips were about head height anyway. But the knees to the head, I freaking love, because as soon as you get into a dominant clinch position, you can bend them over and then start going to town. I also like that it's going to be the first fight that I'm ever going to not have elbow pads on. So my naked elbows, right? I can't wait for that either. Knees to the head and elbows. There's definitely no headgear. And it is 5-minute rounds. So my cardio has to be more on point. And I think with striking, it's easy. Having that cardio is easy. You know, we were already doing 3-minute rounds and a lot of times we would train 3-minute rounds with a 45-second rest. And these are 5-minute rounds with a minute rest. So you just bump it up by another 2 minutes and you're good to go. If I was striking for all 5 minutes, I don't see any issue. Where it might become an issue is the amount of cardio that grappling takes still, because I am like, Muay Thai is obviously my bread and butter. Grappling is not like breathing. Muay Thai is like breathing to me. I can breathe through it. I have no issues. But with the grappling portion, it takes a little bit extra energy because I don't have those effortless movements as down, right? I don't have them as crystal clear in my head when I transition from one position to the next. But I do have a good basis and I have a good gas tank. So I don't see it being an issue. Grappling, you can kind of stall in certain positions where you're dominant if you do need to get your air back. But if it's continuous explosive grappling, it's definitely a higher threshold for cardio, in my opinion, than my continuous striking. So I think if we go to the ground in the first round and we start doing some explosive wrestling is tiring for anybody, regardless of if you're in shape, because it's explosive grappling. So I definitely have been training 6-minute rounds for grappling, 6 or 7-minute rounds for grappling, because that's what a lot of jiu-jitsu people do, especially when they're getting ready for worlds. The black belts go much longer than the white or blues, right? Because I think it's 4-minute rounds for whites and blues, and then as you get into black belt, it's 6 and 7-minute rounds. And then even at ADCC and some of those super fights, right, it's you either submit them or you just keep going. Like there have been 20-minute matches because you have to go until you submit the other person. So it's definitely a good look to be grappling for 6 or 7 minutes at a time and really trying to overshoot on the cardio for that, which is what I've been doing.
Yeah. I'm curious. I know that you've sort of gone between a lot of different weight classes, both in Muay Thai and in MMA. Like your last fight was at 125, this one's at 115.
Sure.
Where do you feel most comfortable? Where do you see your future in MMA?
Yeah, so with my last 2 MMA fights, they were at 125 because they're same-day weigh-ins. I didn't feel like dropping to 15 for a same-day weigh-in. And then with Muay Thai, it was 54 kilos, which is 118.8. And I would hit that that's day of weigh-ins every single day, 3 times in a row. So if I can hit 118 same day, I don't see any issue. I've never actually cut to it's 115 with a pound allowance. So I'm going to have to cut to 16, which is an extra 2.8 pounds. But I don't see an issue with it. If I'm hitting 118.8 daily and fighting daily with recovery, I don't see the issue with it, cutting 2.8 more pounds for a day before weigh-in. That doesn't scare me at all. So 115 is definitely where I'm comfortable. This one is going to be at a catch weight. My opponent actually asked for a catch weight at 120 a couple weeks back, and I accepted because why not? I also don't want her to pull out. And she assured, the promoter that she wasn't going to pull out regardless. She would make the 115, not an issue. But I also get really worried that if the weight's not coming off or if she has to cut like a lot, she might be more prone to injury. And I don't want this fight to not happen. So I'm like, nope, whatever weight you want, it's fine with me. So we're going to be doing a catch weight at 120, which is going to be a super easy cut. I've hit 119 same day, 120 day before is going to be a cakewalk. And we're I kept a little bit more muscle on because I am able to hit 120 without an issue. 115 is going to be my weight class moving forward. And I'm excited because I'm super tall. I'm 5'8", which, if you didn't know, would be the tallest straw weight in UFC history by 2 inches. The tallest right now is Ashley Yoder, who is 5'6", and I believe there's one other that's 5'6" in the weight class. And Yoder is another one that I train with relatively often. She just went and won a jiu-jitsu tournament last weekend, actually, at black belt. So I have a great group of girls that I'm surrounded by. Jessica Penne is another one. And those are all my training partners, right? These super high level people. It gives me the utmost confidence when I walk in there and I'm like, man, I train with Jess and Angie and Ashley and Jenna. Those 4 girls alone make me uber confident in any situation, because when I go into that situation, I know, well, I'm not fighting them, and they're very freaking good. Like anybody, and I go toe to toe with these girls. So moving forward into my fights, I think it's going to give me all the confidence that I need to go in and have a fantastic performance.
Yeah, and I think having such a good crew around you, especially, it's one thing to have a good crew around you, of people that are maybe different genders, different weight classes, and things like that. But having people your size
Right.
that are women that are able to support you, I think that is
Huge.
absolutely massive for somebody like yourself who's just getting started in the sport. And speaking of, I want to hear a little bit about your goals in MMA. I'm sure that your ultimate goal, is to make it to the UFC, join all of your teammates, and achieve glory there.
Of course.
But obviously, there's steps along the way to get to that point. So I'd love to hear what your goals are to get to that point, and what steps you're looking at taking.
Definitely. So moving forward, the first thing that we're going to do is fight for Valley Fight Series. They actually already secured me another opponent for September. So getting 2 fights this year is going to be huge. I definitely am excited to fight for them in twice this year in such a short time. I can't believe she got another girl to already say yes. Hopefully I don't scare her off with the performance I'm about to have. But I see myself fighting for the Valley Fight Series belt within 3 or 4 fights. If she can get me another fight in November, even, because she does have 3 promotions this year. If she can get me 3 fights this year and I go 3-0, I don't see any reason why after that I can't go ahead and fight for the belt at 3-0. She is a relatively newer pro promotion, but she's becoming very successful in that pro promotion. And I'd be excited to be, I think I'd be the first strawweight. Yeah, because she's only had like 2 shows. So I'd be the first strawweight champion for Valley Fight Series in Fresno, where I grew up my Muay Thai, right? I didn't grow up as a person, but I lived there for 10 years. And that was most of my adult life. I moved there at 17. I left at about 27. So I was there, and that's where I started my Muay Thai at Three Kings, right? And they have a great program. Sean's super good technical coach, and leaving Fresno was tough, and I'm stoked to go back and fight in where I grew up, where my adult Muay Thai career began. Definitely the genesis of my adult career was in Fresno. So going back full circle to my first pro fight is a serendipitous thing, if you will. Moving forward from that, we are in touch with a lot of other promotions, LFA, Cage Warriors, right? The big ones that are going to help feed me into the UFC, which I do believe in its eventuality will come. I think fighting for Cage Warriors would be really cool because they do hold promotions here in San Diego, and Angie's the commentator. So having Angie commentate, though she's also cornering me for this fight, so I don't know how that would work. I think I'd have to relinquish that and let her commentate and let somebody else, come in the back and help warm me up, since it is an important job to go commentate for Cage Warriors. And I have a couple girls that I can, choose from to help me just move around in the back. But so Cage Warriors, potentially LFA. I guess it depends on the trajectory. And then I want to get into Contender Series pretty quick after that. I think my manager, Brian from Sucker Punch, is going to be really paramount with helping me get into the bigger promotions, definitely onto Contender Series. If I go 4-0 and I have finishes on all 4 fights, which is what I'm going for, obviously. But if I have finishes on all 4 fights, I don't see any reason why I would have to, dilly-dally any longer without shooting straight to Contender Series, because I do see girls on Contender Series that are 3-0 that go up, and I do have a pedigree already. So if I have one belt, professional belt, or maybe I can go fight for LFA's belt, or Cage Warriors belt. Cage Warriors, I probably have to fight 1 or 2 times before they let me fight for the belt. But if I can go fight for them a couple times and get noticed, jump on the Contender Series, have a good performance, and then shoot up into the UFC.
Maybe fight a opponent who you've already fought before. And
yeah. So Kendra's been fighting for LFA. She's doing a great job. She had a head kick knockout in her last fight, which
you know how that feels, don't you?
Know how that feels, man. Absolutely. I'm definitely a different fighter, and she's a different fighter, more advanced, more experienced fighter now. I know that her grappling has come a long way since then, and I'd be excited to see what we look like with all of our weapons, right? So yeah, if I do a couple fights for Valley Fight Series, I would absolutely love to fight Kendra and LFA. And I think that she would welcome the challenge because she's down for challenges. That's just how she is. And we know it'd be a banger of a fight. I think it'd be a great LFA title match, honestly.
Yeah. Are there any other names on the tip of your tongue that you're looking to face either by the time you get to the UFC or on your journey up? Or is there anybody that you're looking to compete against?
Yes, but the ones that I'm looking to compete against are way down the road, right? Because I watch these girls. When I watch film, I watch the strawweight girls when I watch film, and there's a lot of very talented strikers right now in the strawweight division. Wei Li, who did she just fight?
Yan Xiaonan.
Yan, yes. So Yan would be super fun to fight. But Wei Li and Yan, Yan would be fun to fight because she's so long, and I don't tend to get to fight longer fighters. And then Dern, of course, because she's big, but I want to test my my muscles. I want to test how big I am against somebody who they claim is super strong and super big for their weight class. I have a ways to go before I actually fight these girls, and I have some development that needs to happen along the way. But I definitely am excited for fighting those girls. Nama Yunus went up to 125, so she's out of the 115er, but she's always somebody that I've loved to watch in terms of striking and would love to test my mettle against as well. So there are names, but when it comes to the beginning promotions, I'm looking for somebody who's down, somebody who's ready to fight and a challenge. Kendra is definitely one of them that I've always wanted to get back. So fighting her would be fantastic.
Most important name right now is CaySea McBride.
Yeah, the next one.
Yeah,
that's the only one that matters.
Yeah. So, really quick before we wrap up, you did mention before we got on that you started a meal prep business as part of your what you're doing for work now, both in terms of fundraising and what you're doing for a job outside of fighting. So I'd love to give you the floor to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. My normal job is I officiate sports. So I'm a basketball official and I officiate softball, which I've been doing for 15 years, right? Really long time. And I'm very good at it. I do the college levels, but it also serves for a lot of pressure. And I don't mind the pressure, but when I'm in fight camp and I'm doing a 2 or 3 hour practice in the morning and then I have to go work, I'm mentally spent going to work. And then I have to train after that. And any amount of pressure that isn't fighting doesn't serve the purpose that I want it to serve. So the cool thing about food prep is you can sit there and cut potatoes and there's no pressure. Nobody's telling you to cut faster when you're doing it in your own home, right? And I'm really enjoying the process of that. It's kind of like meditating. When you're sitting there and you're getting lost in that monotonous motion, you're able to shut off that fight or flight in your brain, whereas officiating doesn't allow me to do that. So I kind of started this meal prep thing as a fundraiser, like, hey, buy my meals, support my fight camp. And what my brother, who's a manager down here at a nutrition shop that I used to work in, he's like, hey, we sell meals out of here for bodybuilders. And I'm like, well, I know a little something about training and needing certain fuel. So I'm calling it fighters fuel because it fuels all of the fighters. That's become very successful immediately through selling through his shop and then selling direct orders to the clientele that I already have through the gym is going really well as well. It helps that I was a cook for 6 years, right? I did it professionally. I cooked at Chipotle and Chili's, and you can laugh, but you learn a lot of skills, and it helped set me up because now when I get in there and I get into my zone, I have this flow state because I did it for years and years and years. So when you're really good at something, you can access that flow state a lot faster. And I'm already passionate about it. So I get to kind of compound on my passion for science and nutrition and my passion for cooking and food. Then there's a lot of fighters in my gym who look to me for nutrition advice because I am such a nerd when it comes to the nutrition aspect of fighting, cutting weight, all of it. They tend to ask me a lot of questions. And instead of answering their questions on what they should be eating, I'm like, here, look at this meal. Maybe you should just buy this meal and eat this meal. So I've definitely have a lot of trust that I've generated by becoming a savant of nutrition. And the fighters in the gym are very responsive and very supportive of this new thing that I have. We're still working on an LLC. When I get back from my fight, we're going to get into a commercial kitchen once a week. I'm going to go do all my prep. That way I'm not cooking multiple times a week. Right now, without the counter space, it's a little tough. But I'm excited to take the next steps in that as well and replace all of my officiating, unless it's like some 8U, 10U rec ball where there's no pressure because I can do softball with my eyes closed. Unless it's that, then I'm kind of pulling back from softball altogether so that I can use all of my focus, that's my intensity, on fighting. Making that switch is very beneficial for me. And then I'm already going to cook for myself. So now I can buy the food in bulk. So my personal food cost goes down because all the stuff that I'm cooking is stuff that I'm eating for my camps. That's why I'm calling it fighters fuel, because this is literally the food that's going to fuel my camps. So if you want some advice, just buy my food and then it won't be a problem. You'll be able to be properly fueled for your fight camps as well.
So a couple follow-up questions on that then. One, what would you say is your specialty / favorite meal out of the meal prep options that you have right now? And two, how can people go about getting meal prep options from you?
Right. So eventually we'll have a website. We're going to work on a website design. Once we get the LLC solidified, we can work on a website design, and there will be customizable options on the website. For now, it's all, you have to contact me personally. I'm the one that does all of the cooking, and I barbecue all my meat, which is part of why it's so good because it has that char. But also, you don't have to use oil when you barbecue, and that's the part. And you still get like a char. That's the part that I love about it. So I do like steak and chicken options, and then I have 3 different types of veg on my menu right now: either asparagus, broccoli, or green beans. And then for the carbs, I have sweet potato and cilantro lime rice. I would say the cilantro lime rice is one of my specialties because I did work at Chipotle for so long. I can nail cooking cilantro lime rice. And the seasonings, I just put in sweet potatoes. Oh my God, they're delicious. I gotta say, I really nailed that one. But the cook on the meat is the most important to me, because when I try to buy food prep, which hasn't happened in a long time, but the couple times that I have tried other food prep companies, my biggest complaint is the meat isn't dry, or the meat's dry, it's not moist, and there's not enough of it. So my meals have 7 ounces of meat cooked weight, because I think doing raw weight and advertising raw weight is very deceitful. My personal opinion, a lot of meal prep companies do it. They'll advertise 16 ounces of chicken, but it's 16 ounces raw weight, and then they'll weigh it out cooked, and it's 12 ounces cooked weight. And that's very deceitful, because you're not getting as much bang for your buck. And when you put it into your calorie counter, you're counting it as 16 ounces when you should be counting it as 12 ounces cooked weight. Chicken breast doesn't have a lot of fat, so you don't cook off 4 ounces. When you cook a pound of chicken, you cook off like an ounce, maybe. So I like how honest the food is. It's a cup of veg, a cup of carb, and 7 ounces cooked weight of meat in every meal. I do have egg bites, though. Those are delicious, because I love the egg bites from Starbucks, but they have 40 ingredients in them. If you haven't looked at the ingredient list for those, and then the macro count, like the nutrition, is 9 grams of protein, 7 grams of fat. So I've got mine down, even with the turkey sausage that I make personally. I've got those down to like each one, I want to say, is 9 grams of protein. And for the veggie, it's 1 gram of fat. And then for the non-veggie, it's 4 grams of fat. So it's like half the amount of fat in each egg bite. You can have a lot more of them, and they only have 5 ingredients in them. They're not processed. You don't have to worry about the sourcing of the ingredients. They're definitely just, I'm trying to push honest food. People are too concerned with calorie count. They're not enough concerned with how many chemicals go into their food, how honest their food sourcing is. And I'm trying to kind of turn that on its head and change it so that people feel good about the food that they're eating.
Yeah, man, that is perfect. That sounds, if I lived in San Diego or in the California area,
shipped,
I would be hitting you up. But
we'll expand eventually.
yeah,
Eventually
eventually you'll be able to ship to Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, we'll get there, right? We'll get there.
But I did also want to ask, because I've spoke with you 3 times now, and I don't think I've known that you've done officiating and things like that, but I've never asked. I'm sure you have a laundry list of stories from that. Whether that's experience with players, experiences with parents, if you're coaching like youth leagues and stuff like that. Experiences. So
Parents and coaches.
I'd love to hear a couple of those,
Okay.
whether they're funny or weird or whatever.
I'll give you one, or I'll give you 2, because one of them is about a coach that got mad, and then one of them is a funny one. But yes, I definitely have a lot of confrontation, which is also why pulling out of officiating close to a fight to avoid the cortisol spike is beneficial for me. I like officiating, but it is a lot of stress because you are pressured to do a good job. So let's go. Story 1 is when I first started one of my first tournaments. This was 10U ball. I was the plate umpire, and there's almost always 2 umpires on a field when you're officiating at tournaments. And so I'm the plate umpire, and there's an out that happens. Bases are loaded. There's an out that happens at first base. Well, the girls throw to home after that, and there's now no longer force out at home, right? But it being my first time officiating at a tournament, I'm not completely 100% on my stuff all the time. So I call her out, but she didn't tag her. I call her out on the force out. And before coaches need to just time and come up respectfully. This guy comes down from he's the first base coach. He's like a 300-pound dude. And he comes beet red, looks like a tomato, like puffed up, and grabs his hat, charges down the line, throws it in the ground, and starts screaming at me like about this call. And I'm 16 years old at the time. I'm frozen solid, just like I don't know. What? And I froze up, and his other coach came and got him because of how he approached me. Just came and grabbed him, and we didn't change the call. We should have changed the call to a safe call because I called it out on a force out, and I didn't realize it wasn't a force out. We should have changed the call, but because of how he approached me, I froze up, and then his coach grabbed him and talked to me after, and I was like, look, the way he approached me, I was like, I'm not changing that call. I don't know. We still should have changed it, got it right for the girls. I totally believe in that. Like, go change your call if it's the right call. But that was probably one of the scariest ones. It almost scared me away from officiating. One of the funnier, parents always chirp, but I have a pretty good system. So I tend to find the parent that's scorekeeping for that game. I learn their name. And then in between innings, I'll go and talk to them. And they kind of serve as this person that it's like a medium, like an in-between for me and the parents. Because if any of the parents have questions, they'll ask the scorekeeper to talk to me about it. Or I'll go talk to the scorekeeper and the parents will ask me then. The biggest confrontations come from a lack of information when it comes to parents, because 10-year-old parents don't know what the heck they're talking about. They don't understand the rules to softball. That's okay. I'm here to explain the rules to you, and it doesn't bug me like it bugs a lot of officials to go and explain the rules. Now, the funny one, this was a high school game, and I'm sitting there right in front of the play. Boom, I call her out. The coach, the offensive coach, he calls time, approaches me properly, calls time, comes out onto the field. He's like, did you get a good look at the play? Yeah, I did. Were you blocked at all? No, I'm standing right here, only a couple of feet off. I got a really good view, and I got her out, coach. He's like, do you think I could take you to dinner and change your mind? Dude, I laughed so hard. He's like, I'm not above bribery. Oh man, so you get a lot of like crazy people from different walks of life, but it's a fun job. And if you're there for the girls and you have joy when you go onto the field, you provide them with that service of happiness, because sports is supposed to be about enjoying competition. It's not supposed to be about getting caught up in the officials and trying to, have an ego as an official. A lot of officials have an ego. They think their strike zone is the best strike zone. And I'm like, there's only one strike zone. You're either accurate or you're not, and you're either consistent or you're not. But ultimately, you're not doing it to serve your ego. You're doing it to serve the girls. And being an athlete, I take my job extra seriously because I always want them to get a fair shot at the game.
Does that give you a deeper sort of level of respect? Because I feel like MMA officials and combat sports officials get a lot of flack.
Yeah,
does having that
respect.
background give you a little bit more respect for the officials?
It gives me respect, but it also gives me contempt for the ones that do a very shitty job, right? So there's a level. If you're just inattentive, like you're just not paying attention, why are you even there? Get out of the ring. But if you're trying your hardest to do a job and you just like make a mistake, I have total empathy for being a human. And you're allowed to make mistakes. As fighters, we make mistakes all the time. That's why we get caught with punches. How many times do you get punched in a fight? That's how many mistakes you made. Like, you have to look at these people as human beings. And a lot of times they want a robot where they don't want you to make any mistakes because you're an official and it's not fair if you make mistakes. Yeah, but it happens. And it happens more often than people like to admit. It happens to me all the time. I'll miss a couple pitches. As long as I'm at 99, 98% on my pitches, on my pitch count, I count how many I miss because I don't want to miss any. But guess what? I miss some. So when somebody makes a mistake in a ring, then yeah, I have a ton of empathy for them. Or they make a mistake on a really close fight for judging. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I don't get obsessed with judges that will score a split one way or the other if it came down to 2 or 3 exchanges. But the splits where you have 30-27 one way, 30-27 the other way, and it's very clear to most people, like, the significant strike count is ridiculously higher on one person than the other one. I don't have any sympathy for those people. Those people need to open their eyeballs and figure out what their criteria is, because, or take some caffeine or get some focus from somewhere, because they're just not mentally present in a lot of those situations. So it's two sides of the same coin. I'm extra critical on certain people, depending on how egregious the offense is. And then if it's something like stopping a fight too early because you're like, oh crap, I need to protect this fighter, I'm very, uh, very empathetic when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so, before we got on, I told you that we were going to try to keep this interview short.
Sorry.
But this is
It's
no,
my
no, no, no,
fault.
no. And
I'm
it's
a
turned out to
talker.
be the longest interview out of the 3 that we've done.
I'm a
So I do
talker.
want to work towards wrapping it up a little bit. So I do want
Yeah.
to give you the floor for your
Sponsors?
time. I want to
Yes.
give you the floor to give any shout outs,
Yeah,
give shout outs to your sponsors, coaches,
definitely.
friends,
So,
family, supporters,
so
and how can people follow you on social media?
yeah, so social media, AJ Tie Fighter, boom, 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 Instagram. That's the best way. I post the most on there. You can request me on Facebook, but it is still private. And if I don't know you personally, I probably won't accept you. But Instagram is the best way to follow me. I got some stuff going up on YouTube. I don't have a YouTube channel, but I do have videos on YouTube of me. I just did it like a little day in the life thing recently. And then a couple fights are on there. And
One of
then
these days, you're going to bring Technique Tuesdays back consistently, aren't you?
consistently, yeah, I had 2 of them this month. I had 2 of them, so I do have some of them. I dabble them in there now, but I definitely bring back every once in a while. I'll do throw a Technique Tuesday in there, and I love doing those. They're a lot of fun. So yeah, social media is that, and then shout outs. Biggest one is going to be my wife Taylor, who supports me, and I couldn't do this without. My other biggest one is Carl, my coach, who is one of the most generous guys with his time, with his money, with his effort that I have ever met. Like, definitely love that guy to pieces. So glad I found him. Steele, my team at Steele has been uber supportive. They've been buying my meal prep. They've been buying my T-shirts, which I just got in. And it's World of Warcraft. It's a night elf. I'm a little nerdy, so it's definitely in the realm of, if you've ever watched like Lord of the Rings or something like that, then you can get a feel for what it's supposed to be. It's like a warrior elf. And then shout out to Bushido Ways. They are a supplement company that has been helping me with my fight camps. They give me, their biggest thing is their amino acids have lion's mane in them, which is a natural anti-inflammatory that doesn't upset my stomach. Whereas things like ibuprofen and Tylenol can really upset your stomach. And your stomach, your microbiome is super important for when you're losing weight. If you're taking ibuprofen consistently, then one, you're not getting the natural inflammation that you need for healing, because it does help with blood flow to the areas that you need inflammation in. You shouldn't always be negating your inflammation. There should be some inflammation, like, it is good for you. There's optimal inflammation. And then when you're injured, obviously you want less inflammation. But lion's mane, it is a nootropic as well as a natural anti-inflammatory, and they put that in their amino acid, which helps me out significantly. They have been one of my biggest proponents for this fight camp, especially. They send me a lot of different supplements that I take regularly. And then Alpine Community, which is a construction community, they've just been helping me out, right? They're one of my sponsors, my shirt sponsors, that helps me out. And then my last one, who else do I have on there? Ah, crap. Let's see. ES3 was helping me out with my physical therapy. Yeah, I think Oh, Ohana, there. One of the gyms that I went and did a seminar at this last year. They help me out. They offer for me to come in and do seminars and pay me handsomely to do that. And then they also sent me some sponsorship stuff for this fight coming up. They gave me a jacket that has my name on the back, that has Whiplash embroidered on the back, and that's awesome. So Ohana Mixed Martial Arts up in Sacramento. If you're up north, definitely check them out. They have an excellent kids program. So I preach for them. If you are in NorCal, join up. I think that is just about it for my shout outs. Thanks for having me on the pod, on the cast.
Absolutely. This has been Ashley Thiner. You can catch her competing at Valley Fight Series on June 8th. Ashley, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for your time and best of luck in your fight.
All right. You are so welcome, and let's knock them out.
All right.